Hello everyone, and welcome back to Steins Linear Bounded Phenogram. I'm G, and we've been doing Kursu's story, which is just in the Alpha Attractor field, seeing Okabe's trials from Kursu's point of view. So after an outburst by Okabe, Kuroki, Ferris's butler, has knocked him out and brought him back to Ferris's apartment. So let us begin. Akihabara Times Tower. It's the tallest condominium complex in Akihabara, complete with a view of Mount Fuji and Tokyo Tower from its top floors. On the top floor of this Akihabara station adjacent complex was Ferris-san's home. I must admit, a high-end condo with its own concierge service is certainly a much safer location than the lab's Okiyama building. In fact, this might have been the safest place for Okabe, given everything that was going on. On our way, Ferris-san reached out to her father to make sure he was home. She told him to make certain arrangements and that she would fill him in on the details later.
Rumiho.
Papa!
Rumiho. Is that her real name? Ferris-san's father gave his daughter a big hug as he welcomed her home. Seeing a display of affection like this, one especially rare in Japan, fills my chest with a subtle, hard-to-describe emotion. I should be familiar with this. I know what the emotion's supposed to be, of course. But now's not the time to worry about it. I assist Kuroki in laying Okabe down in the bedroom. Kuroki tells me that he plans to call the family doctor later to give Okabe some sedatives. I sigh in relief. Then I return to the living room to formally introduce myself to Ferris-san's father. The man, having just finished hugging his daughter, smiled gently as he noticed me and enthusiastically offered his hand.
You must be Rumiho's friend. I'm her father, Akihaya Yukitaka. Nice to meet you.
I shake his hand without hesitation. I've lived in America so long that it's almost uncomfortable meeting someone without a handshake. I'm Makise Kurisu.
Makise Kurisu-san.
Yes, that's right. Still holding my hand, Yukitaki Oji-sama tilts his head and looks at me. It seemed as though he was studying my face. Don't tell me he's one of those perverted old men. Just as I was about to ask Ferris-san for help, Yukitaka Oji-sama mentioned a name I didn't expect to hear.
Is your father Makise Shoichi by any chance?
What? How do you know my father's name?
I knew it! You are Kurisu-chan. What a coincidence. You've grown up into a fine young woman.
Papa, how do you know Mr. Makise?
Shoichi and I are old college buddies.
No way.
At one point, I even funded his research. I was the sponsor and Shoichi was the genius researcher, our joint mentor, a professor of ours, advisor, and supported us.
You funded... I feel like I've heard this story before. It was the reason my family had to move to Aomori. At the time we were living in Tokyo and Papa was an independent researcher. But the reason we had to move to Aomori, where my father still lives, is because the funding he relied on was cut off. So this man...
We kept our little group up for a while after we graduated. We called it the Transcendence of the Theory of Relativity Committee.
That's the first I've heard of that. What a name.
In fact, you often visited our home with your father, Kurisu-chan. Back then, we lived in Ochanomizu. We had to sell the place since my company was going bankrupt, but we actually had a yard. You and Rumiho used to play together out there.
Yeah.
What?
Does that mean Makise and I are childhood friends?
Ferris and I stared at each other in disbelief. So much has happened today that I feel like my nerves are about to short out.
Can't believe you didn't mention it, Kuroki. Didn't you realize who it was?
I did recognize her, but I decided it would be more prudent to prioritize Okabe-sama's safety over discussing old memories.
Reasonable. And thank you, Kuroki, for looking after my daughter's friend. Now to the matter at hand.
Right. Yeah, right now, my papa's history and my unknown connection to Ferris are irrelevant. Right now we need to keep our focus on Okabe. I'm sorry for asking for your help out of the blue.
Not at all. In fact, it's good that you did.
Huh? His tone was cunning and sharp, as if he had transformed from the easygoing nostalgic man who stood before me a moment before. He was no longer a father, but a shrewd businessman. His gaze is as sharp as a knife. His eyes are like a hawk's, taking in everything around him.
When Rumiho called me, I could hardly believe what I was hearing, so I called a buddy of mine and, well...
A buddy of yours?
Yeah, they manage the street vendors at festivals around Akihabara, like the Kanda Festival at the Kanamyojin Shrine, for example. And what they had to say took me by surprise. It was just as Rumiho said, the Rounders have been interfering with both the railway company and the police department. They even tried to interfere with my friend.
My breath caught in my throat at what must have been the 1000th shock I'd received today. It's not that I don't believe Okabe, but to know for certain that CERN is actually able to influence organizations like the police leaves me shaking.
I looked into it while you were on the way here, and it sounds like they're blocking off the entire Akihabara neighborhood and limiting entry. It may not look that way at a glance, but they've essentially set up police security checkpoints. I'd imagine they planned on capturing Kurisu-chan and Okabe-kun as they tried to get out.
Capturing us? I shuddered. We're being targeted by a powerful organization. Given that Okabe Hashida and I were the driving force behind the time machine, we must be their main focus. Thinking on it now makes me feel even more worried for Mayuri and Hashida's safety.
What in God's name have you managed to get yourselves caught up in? I want you to tell me every detail. We need to get to the bottom of exactly what's going on in Akihabara right now.
There was a subtle anger in Yukitaka Oji-sama's voice. It wasn't directed towards us. His anger was directed towards the intruders stomping through the place he lived, the place that he's built up and nurtured over the years. An anger born from the desire to protect the town he loves, like a mother bird defending her nest.
I see.
In the end, it took the three of us, Ferris, Kuroki, and me, over an hour to tell Yukitaka Oji-sama everything that was going on. Well, to the extent that we were capable, at least. The only one of us Time Leap witnessed Mayuri's numerous deaths or know anything about CERN members of the Committee of 300 is Okabe. Under normal circumstances, his testimony would be invaluable for clarifying certain details and verifying what he had to say. But given his unconsciousness and extreme mental fatigue, that's simply not an option. It's not surprising. The shock and despair he's gone through would be unbearable even for someone trained to cope with mental trauma. I'm only still standing right now because I'm forcing myself to think rationally. Which is why we ended up telling Yukitaka Oji-sama Okabe's story on our own. It was a long explanation, fraught with false start speculation and clarifications, but we finally finished. That said, Yukitaka Oji-sama's initial response didn't seem positive. He tilts his head down, frowns, and seemed to lose himself in thought. You must not be able to believe it. No surprise there. It didn't come from Okabe, after all. No, it's hard to believe even coming from Okabe himself. I wouldn't have believed him myself if he weren't so desperate. I would have written it off as yet another Chunibyo fantasy. Otsu.
Kurisu-chan.
Yukitaka Oji-sama unexpectedly breaks the silence. Yes?
I told you earlier that your father and I had been friends since college, and I funded his research, correct?
Correct. Though I have to admit, I'm still having trouble comprehending that. It was when Yukitaka Oji-sama's funding ceased that Papa's lifeline as a researcher was cut off. I remember him telling me that when I was little. That was just Papa's perspective. Yukitaka Oji-sama must have had his reasons. That's all in the past anyway. I don't hold any grudge against Yukitaka Oji-sama. Although, Papa did take Mama and me back to his home in Aomori so he could devote himself to his research without worrying about money. Maybe that was a sign that he'd already lost hope. Of course, I know that Yukitaka Oji-sama had his reasons. Papa had told me that he might have pulled his funding because his company was facing financial issues. That's why I don't intend to hold him responsible for what happened.
Then, you know what the Transcendence of the Theory of Relativity Committee was actually researching.
There was something strange in his voice. As if sorrow, anger, and nostalgia were all blended into one. And I find myself stunned at his question. I have never been told the finer details of Papa's research with Yukitaka Oji-sama. But Papa only ever researched one thing. I can make a pretty confident guess. Yes, I know. Once again, the shadow of my father looms over me. And yet...
The three of us, Shoichi, our mentor professor, and I, held regular secret meetings in order to create something.
For Papa and Yukitaka Oji-sama, these memories are treasures from their early adulthood.
Yes, we're trying to create the very thing that you created. A time machine.
Oh, really? That's so childish.
Can't you at least call it romantic?
Yukitaka Oji-sama told us briefly about the transcendence of the theory of relativity committee. Papa and Yukitaka Oji-sama's mentor, the professor, was the first to research time machines.
It's totally Suzuha, isn't it?
It all began when Papa snuck a look at his notes. The dream of the time machine inspired Papa and Yukitaka Oji-sama into forming a group with the professor they once avoided. That group became what Papa dubbed the Transcendence of the Theory of Relativity Committee. The professor had all the ideas and inspiration, but didn't have the scientific and technological means to make them a reality. Papa handled the actual R&D. In other words, the professor had the ideas, Yukitaka Oji-sama the funding, and Papa the research and engineering. This was how the committee functioned. In that way, it was a lot like our Future Gadget Laboratory, where our crew centers their work around Okabe. Okabe has the ideas, I construct the theories, and Hashida conducts the actual experiments. This means Papa handled both Maya and Hashida's roles. Parallels are obvious. Yukitaka Oji-sama must have realized this when he heard about the time leap machine, which would explain the complicated emotions in his voice. The next generation succeeded where his failed. Did his odd tone stem from pride or from jealousy? Of course, there's no way for me to know for sure, and I may very well be oversimplifying things. It's clearly dealing with some complicated personal feelings.
I understand certain aspects of your story because we were trying to make the same thing. No, that's not quite right. It's not that I understand, per se.
It's maybe the first I've heard Yukitaka Oji-sama doubt his own words. What do you mean?
Perhaps I have some understanding of CERN and the Committee of 300, from two perspectives.
This time it was my turn to frown upon hearing Yukitaka Oji-sama's words.
Two perspectives? What do you mean?
From the first, perhaps I should say our professor, was acquainted with them. He conducted his time machine research in near absolute secrecy, kept external cooperation to a minimum to avoid leaks. Joichi fully agreed with the policy, so I was the outlier. There were times when I needed support for funding, so things could occasionally get difficult. Thinking back on it now, I believe the professor must have known CERN's true nature.
In other words, he had remarkable foresight. But then there are cases like Okabe. It's difficult to tell what the truth actually is. And what's the second perspective?
It has to do with the Committee of 300, but once again I can't claim this knowledge as my own.
Again, I couldn't help but be puzzled by Yukitaka Oji-sama's words. Seeing the questions written on my face, Yukitaka Oji-sama spoke with a gentle smile.
Kurusu-chan, from your perspective, doesn't it seem like secret societies exist primarily within the realm of fiction?
Huh? I wasn't able to come up with a response to the bizarre inquiry. Though it seems he expected my reaction.
Truth be told, secret societies are practically a dime a dozen, at least in the eyes of industrialists like myself.
I don't even know what I'm up against. Faced with the reality of this statement, my brain retreated to one of my regular at-channel references. Sensing my inability to process what I was hearing in my blank expression, Yukitaka Oji-sama explains himself more simply. Essentially, it boils down to this. Long ago, before the Industrial Revolution, the publication and distribution of information was far more costly than it is now. Additionally, with society's rapid advancements and the associated increase in business opportunities, merchants realized that traditional business methods were fast becoming obsolete. Perhaps the greatest change was the unprecedented demand for banks just before the start of the Age of Exploration. This demand transformed the economy entirely. That marked the end of the old way of doing business. Small range, small scope, small margin businesses were on the way out. Faced with the changing world, the wealthy, in order to protect their profits, searched for ways to construct unions to mutually benefit one another. But these weren't like national unions. These organizations were closed off to the majority of society. Some of them kept their very existence a secret in order to protect their members and activities. These organizations later became known as secret societies. Naturally, there are non-economic secret societies too. For example, Italy's famous Sicilian Mafia was originally a rebel organization that fought against oppression from the mainland. Moreover, the Knights Templar, a centerpiece of numerous conspiracy theories, is not an actual secret society. The belief that the Templars operate in secret to this day is largely due to France declaring members of their order heretics. Outside of France, however, they operate in plain sight. Most notably in Portugal, where the king became a member of the Knights Templar, uniting the country and the organization as one. In other words, present-day Portugal is the Knights Templar. One can hardly call Portugal a secret society. The Soviet Union, which collapsed before I was born, was originally a secret society. A society that sparked a revolution and turned itself into a nation.
While you may not be aware of them, many secret societies exist today, and they're influencing our world. That's not anything particularly special, quite the contrary, in fact. I'm not sure that you're aware, but your lab is in a way a secret society too. That's something you need to understand.
To be honest, his words shook me. I'd always thought secret societies were nothing but delusional fantasies thought up by conspiracy theorists in Chunibyo. But apparently there are many secret societies influencing the governments of developed countries simply by voting. Of course, there are still many profit-seeking secret societies whose ambitions don't extend beyond wealth.
The Committee of 300 is the same. I don't know where they rank globally, but they are certainly significant. In terms of business, it would not be wise to pick a fight with them. You don't know their motives, their scale, or their methods. Not knowing how they think is especially damaging. If I could find a way to barter some sort of mutually beneficial agreement, I might be able to reason with them. But it's impossible without knowing what they want.
Huh?
Harrison's question is ripe with concern. In response, the corners of Yukitaka Ojisama's lips curl up.
However, we cannot allow these people to do whatever they want in our Akihabara. They will pay for this.
At that point, I finally understood. Yukitaka Ojisama was angry.
Oh, please excuse me.
As he answers the phone that rang abruptly, Yukitaka Ojisama dons a slight smile. Then he addresses us as he hangs up.
It seems that we have a lead. We captured one of the rounders that you mentioned.
Captured? Okabe had said that the rounders killed Mayuri. And we captured one of these relentless murderers. What kind of man is Yukitaka Ojisama? It feels like we're stepping outside of reality. Maybe all of this is a dream. No, I can't think like that. I need to stay rooted in real life. And at this point, I don't care if it felt like I was living in a manga. To me, Yukitaka Ojisama's words seemed like the light at the end of a tunnel. According to Yukitaka Ojisama, this is what happened. While his manager buddy was in a bar thinking of a plan, a man bound in rope suddenly appeared lying on the ground out front. This man showed signs of severe physical trauma and was trembling in fear. As they interrogated him, he started to talk openly about being a rounder. The one who brought the man to the bar was a woman with braided hair. According to the barkeeper, she took off on a bicycle without so much as a word after she dropped her captive off out front. The identity of this woman is unknown. Regardless, this provided us with new information about the rounders. Given that the woman offered him up like a present, it's possible that it may be a trap. However, still, the man revealed that the rounders are divided into independent groups, completely unaware of the other rounders' operations. The captured rounder also told us that someone named FB is in charge. FB doesn't give the rounders orders directly, instead choosing to operate through their underlings. Their objective originally was to secure an old PC called the IBM 5100. As of yesterday, the man told us a special rounder task force from France had entered Japan. Their objective was to raid the Future Gadget Laboratory, securing the Time Leap machine and its developers. As for the captured rounder, his division was told to spread across Akihabara to prevent said developers, namely we lab members, from leaving the city. He also confirmed our fears. Mayuri and Hashida had been captured by the rounders and taken away, though the man doesn't know exactly where.
That time machine you built, the Time Leap machine, was supposed to be secured by the Special Task Force. Fortunately, I have a friend at a security company and they're guarding the Ohiyama building. I imagine the rounders took notice.
Which means coming to Ferris-san's home was the right choice. Staying at the lab could have led to a confrontation with the rounders coming to take the Time Leap machine. I shudder thinking about how that encounter would have ended.
Where have they taken Mayushi and Darunyan?
Ferris was driven to tears by her father's story. It doesn't seem like she can just stand by knowing that her friends are in danger. That seemed like she had no idea what to do. If we can capture this rounder named FB... Thinking out loud, knowing full well how difficult that would be. We don't have anywhere close to the amount of information we need. We don't even know if this FB is in Japan or not. If only Hashida were here. I know I'm asking for the impossible, but I'm sure that Hashida's excellent hacking would be able to find us a loophole. Hacking isn't solely about remotely accessing a device or source of information as the computer network. It's about seeing through the opponent's security or passwords and outwitting someone else to find a route in. In that sense, Hashida might have been able to come up with a unique approach for the mess of a situation we're in, one that would define the rounder's predictions. But he isn't here. It's ironic that we need Hashida's skills in order to find Hashida himself. His contributions to the Time Leap machine were immense. He was a necessary component of our lab, just in a different way than Okabe. I try to brainstorm, but can't come up with any good ideas. Yukitaka Oji-sama picks up the phone once more.
It appears that the situation may be out of our hands.
In a way, he sounded a little defeated, but his expression was not that of someone who had given up.
Papa, what should we do?
I'm glad you asked, Rumiho. Remember this, if you cannot solve a problem on your own, the best thing to do is seek help from someone you trust. This is a rule of thumb in the business world. Just look at how I asked the manager for help earlier. Humans are incomplete beings on their own. That said, they are surrounded by people, society, and history. The experiences they accumulate, the people around them, and the environment into which they are born all contribute to who that person is. I exist as I am now because of the professor's guidance, because of Shoichi, because of Rumiho, because of the town of Akihabara.
Yukitaka Oji-sama continues to say that this is the same for CERN and the Kamei of 300. No matter how powerful of an entity each may be, they are not completely disconnected from the rest of the world. At least some of their number must have family members, who must have connections to their country, their land, or other human beings. Is this Japan? Oh no, this is Europe. Even America, for all its military might, cannot act unrestricted within the modern international society. Even the numerous dictatorships that existed throughout history have connections. However cruel a tyrant may have been, they were not always able to exert their will 100% of the time. And this is where their weakness lies. If the Kamei of 300 is some kind of European organization, then that must mean that there are also Indian and Middle Eastern secret societies. Japan, China, and Russia also have their organizations and industries that can impact the international community. If those organizations can be led to mobilize in some way, even if we can't make CERN or the Committee of 300 abandon or change their plans, we might be able to restrict them into making adjustments.
Needless to say, this may not turn out in our favor. Still, it's better than doing nothing.
And with that, Yukitaka Oji-sama started making calls. He mostly conducted his business in English, but occasionally would use languages I couldn't understand.
Young Mistress Makise-sama.
Fair-san and I were just sitting and watching Yukitaka Oji-sama place his phone calls in a daze, but Kuroki-san's words snapped us out of our reverie.
If I may, I would suggest saving your energy. For now, please get some rest.
But I can understand Kuroki-san's perspective. If Yukitaka Oji-sama intends to rely on his connections to take action, there really isn't much the two of us can do. However, given the situation at hand, I just didn't feel like resting.
Kunyan, Kuroki's right. You should rest a bit.
Fair says as she pulls my arm. But
You know how pale you look right now, Kunyan? You look like Kyoma. You have to rest.
Huh? Pale? I didn't realize it myself, but I must look pretty tired for Fair-san to bring it up. Now that she mentions it, I guess I did stay up all night. I didn't even have dinner. To top it off, there's the summer heat to deal with, coupled with the dire situation that's a recipe for fatigue.
We can't help Kyoma, Mayushi, or Darunyan if we lose you. You need to stay healthy for Kyoma's sake.
Hearing it out loud, I finally realize how irrational I'm being. Fair-san is absolutely right. I can't do anything for Okabe or Mayuri if I've collapsed. Reluctance, uncertainty, and hesitancy fill my heart, but I am a researcher who values reason above all else. So I should act accordingly. Understood. Ferris, Kuroki-san, thank you both. I think I will take a rest.
The bedroom is prepared for you next to Okabe-san's. Allow me to escort you.
I'll let you know if anything happens, Kunyan.
Please. After I thank her, I follow Kuroki-san to my bedroom and... Kunyan? Well, that's a strange new nickname. I couldn't sleep. Even though my body and soul are completely exhausted, my mind is still wide awake. I can't fall asleep no matter what I do. Tossing and turning in bed, I try all sorts of relaxation and breathing techniques to guide myself to sleep. Nothing works. Mayuri, Hashida, Okabe. Staying still only invited unpleasant thoughts. My imagination runs wild with worst case scenarios, each one making my body stiffen. I keep trying to shake the thoughts out of my head. I sigh helplessly. All I want to do is to help my friends, but I don't have the ability to actually do that. For now, I need to place my hope in Yukitaka Oji-sama and make sure I'm rested up when we have some leads to follow. And I understand that. Should I understand it at least? Oh, and I understand that. I should understand it at least, but it doesn't help. Not at all. I'm face to face with my own helplessness, my lack of experience. If
you cannot solve a problem on your own, the best thing to do is to seek help from someone you trust. This is a rule of thumb in the business world.
Yukitaka Oji-sama's words from earlier echo in my head. These words were meant to explain our next steps to us, but also to give us a fair warning. There's always the possibility that we can screw up and make things more complicated. If our impatience got the best of us and we stormed out just to be captured by lingering rounders, all of Yukitaka Oji-sama's planning would go down the drain. There's really nothing we can do. Our only option is to rely on Yukitaka Oji-sama, and the best way to help him is to stay put. This is how it should be, but in the end, I can't do anything. I'm embarrassed by my own immaturity. I'm wishing for power I haven't earned like a child. People should strive to achieve whatever they can within the range of their abilities and experiences. By running society this way, each individual will be able to find their niche. If everyone had equal limitless power, human individuality would be meaningless. I lived in America where different cultures are accepted and celebrated. I know how dull a world without differences would be. But at the same time, it's also true that I haven't matured enough to simply accept my place in a rigid society. My professors and upperclassmen would probably say that my immaturity is part of my personality, and that there are things that only immature people can do. As I vocalize my thoughts, I realize something. Professors and upperclassmen? Once again, Yukitaka Oji-sama's words echo in my mind.
Humans are incomplete beings on their own, but they are surrounded by people, society, and history. The experiences they accumulate, the people around them, and the environments into which they are born all contribute to who that person is. I exist as I am now because of the professor's guidance, because of Shoichi, because of Rumiho, because of the city of Akihabara.
I sit bolt upright in bed. Yeah, that's it! Just as Yukitaka Oji-sama has connections, I have my own. While I may come from a different background and age group than Yukitaka Oji-sama, I'm not alone. Papa and Mama, Ferry-san, Yukitaka Oji-sama, Kuroki-san, the professors and upperclassmen at Victor Kondoria, Okabe, Hashida, Mayuri. There are many people around me, and if Yukitaka Oji-sama can reach out to people for help, I can too. It's just after 11 p.m. now, meaning it's morning in America. I quickly made a list of people I could ask for help, given the time of day. I could only come up with 1 or 2 people, though. But then I realized something. Today is the professor's lecture meeting. My timing couldn't be worse. One of my former teachers at Victor Kondoria's Neuroscience Institute is presenting his research results to professors from other universities today. That alone is going to make him extremely unlikely to be answering phone calls or checking emails. What's worse, I couldn't even get a hold of my upperclassmen, who normally pick up in no time. I have no other personal contacts at Victor Kondoria. What the hell? Why now of all times? And then I remembered something that Okabe said.
It's as if Mayuri's death is the will of the world.
Will of the world. Time paradoxes. Is it possible that I'm also under the influence of the so-called will of the world? Okabe said that even if the Rounders did not directly attack, Mayuri will, for some reason or another, die. No matter how many times he repeated the day, no matter how many things he tried, it was imminent. The will of the world. Natural providence. Okabe told me he felt something that could only be described as fate. Is this the same force that keeps me from reaching anyone for help, no matter how hard I try? Is the will of the world, as Okabe called it, hindering my actions? No, it can't be. I refuse to accept the idea that we live in a predetermined world. The idea that our fates are set is too absurd to believe. Meaning that someone is behind the phenomenon, and if so, we can find out what it is and resolve it to escape this hellish situation. The problem is, how can we identify the cause? And when we do, how can we remedy it? Is it even possible for me to solve this on my own? I tightly gripped the cell phone that I used to place my calls. Try as I might, I couldn't come up with a good idea. No sooner had I caught a glimpse of hope than it faded away. If this were mere research, I could simply walk away, knowing that discovery is a slow process. But not this time. What can I do? I have opened my cell phone absentmindedly and see a certain word in the contacts list. Papa. I tried contacting him a few days ago, but he refused to talk to me. But right now I need anyone's help. If that person is Papa, then all the better. I entered his phone number and pressed call. But no answer. Of course, nobody would pick up at this hour. Or might be because it's me. But does not like me. No, he may as well hate me. There's no way he would answer the phone for the likes of me. I close my cell phone and unconsciously pull myself upright. I then proceed to exit the guest bedroom and gently open the door of the room next door. This room is also as dark as the one previous. But from the sound of his breath alone, I know who was in here. Okabe? Okabe, I'm sorry. What should I do? Okabe is so worn out. He suffered so much for so long. I want to save him, but I don't know how. I don't know what to do for the person I love. I'm completely at a loss. Some genius I turned out to be. I'm confident that I've been working my hardest the whole time. Done everything I can and have even produced results. But at this moment, none of that has any meaning. I can't make Papa happy. Can't save my friends. I'm useless to the one I love. I gently touch Okabe's cheek. Feels like he's lost weight somehow. He might have burned an extreme amount of calories working his brain at such a high capacity after receiving his future memories. Or maybe it's because of after dashing out of the lab, he ran all around Akihabara in desperation. Either way, it's a painful sight. I'm sorry. I'm so powerless. There's nothing I can do. I notice tears falling from my eyes. They land on my hand and drip down, wetting my fingertips on Okabe's cheek. No, I can't cry. I'm not. Okabe is the one suffering the most. I can't cry here. That's right. The one who is in most pain, the one who has suffered the most heartbreak, is the one who has witnessed Mayuri's death over and over again. Okabe. But that means... An image emerges from the back of my mind. The time leap machine. The machine built under Okabe's direction. Right now, I can't think of a way to save Hashida and Mayuri. But what if I change the past? What if I use the time leap machine to get us out of this situation? No. I do not fully understand under what rules and logic are involved with traveling through time and changing the past. So far, through our DML experiments, we've learned that modifying past events can significantly change the world. However, most of us cannot perceive these changes. All this information comes from Okabe, the only person with his reading Steiner ability. If he were lying about this or simply deluded, his hypothesis would collapse immediately. That said, the reason we've come this far is because I believe in his abilities and claims. They're the basis of the time leap machine after all. Even then, changes in time are very subjective and vague, and only Okabe is capable of perceiving them. In other words, even if I were to change the past, only Okabe would notice. If I changed the past, my memories would be erased the moment the world changed. And if they were, if Mayuri's life would put in danger again, I would not have the knowledge to keep her from dying. Even though that she's already died over and over, it seems especially risky. Bottom line is, under the current circumstances, changing the past doesn't make sense without Okabe's involvement. Without the reading Steiner, changing the past is essentially meaningless. Only Okabe can do this, which would mean the burden is entirely on him. It would be too much for Okabe to take. I have to think of an alternative. After muttering that to myself, I realized that the frustration I had been feeling just a minute ago has been somewhat alleviated. I still feel a little impatient, but it isn't clouding my thoughts anymore. Maybe seeing your face helped, Okabe. I try to joke, but there's a ring of truth to my statement. Suddenly, exhaustion and sleepiness come crashing down on me. I should go back to my room. I'll get some sleep, then come up with an idea to fix all of this. I quietly move away from Okabe so as to not wake him up, and return to my own bedroom next door. The next morning, after waking from a good night's sleep, I lightly freshen up my appearance and head to the living room. There I see the exhausted Yukitaka Oji-sama, who looks to have stayed up all night making phone calls, and Kuroki-san, who stood by his side in support. The news is on the big screen TV, perhaps to provide them with alternate sources of information.
Ah, Kurisu-chan. Good morning.
Good morning. How are things going?
Not as well as I'd like.
It seems that Yukitaka Oji-sama has infiltrated the Rounders organization through negotiation and compromise. He has been able to learn the location of several lower-level members, as well as a few agents that pass orders along to them. In some cases, he's even able to capture them, but he's yet to obtain any information regarding FB, or Mayuri and Hashida's whereabouts.
If their confidentiality and haste are any indication, it seems that this particular mission is of high importance to them.
In front of Yukitaka Oji-sama lay several documents and maps with numerous red markings on them. A quick look revealed that these were not only maps of Japan, but of the Far East, Southeast Asia, America, and Europe. They were large-scale maps as well as more detailed ones. Several points have been marked as predicted locations, some of which it seemed had already been investigated.
Normally, after being pushed this far, we would see the opponent either strike back or try to negotiate.
According to Yukitaka Oji-sama, the fact that they hadn't done either indicates how high priority their mission is. Sometimes when prioritizing a single objective, an organization will consider all related losses necessary to its success. Yukitaka Oji-sama said the Rounder's response, or lack thereof, to his actions was in line with the strategy. For CERN, the Rounder's governing body, and the Committee of 300 who controls them, gaining sole control of the time machine, must be an uncompromisable goal. If one can control time, they can manipulate the past to redo any and all operations until their success ensured. For them, nothing is impossible. As I said before, this is the power of a god. When their right mind would simply hand it over to someone else. If they wish to establish themselves as a ruler of the world, their stance is a matter of course. The problem is, that puts the rest of the world at a major disadvantage. Unsurprisingly, Yukitaka Oji-sama is no longer calm and collected.
You
okay?
keep applying pressure, but it isn't working. Facing off against the Committee of 300 directly wouldn't be a wise decision either.
Though he said this, his expression told me that he hadn't ruled the idea out.
Papa?
Ah, Rumiho. Good morning.
Vera-san made her way into the living room and seemed to grasp what was going on just by looking at Yukitaka Oji-sama. Sitting beside Yukitaka Oji-sama, she leans towards him and embraces his arm.
I've worried you, haven't I? Don't worry, your papa's still okay.
Okay.
Vera-san looked conflicted. She's so worried about Mayuri, Hashida, and Okabe that she can hardly stand it, but she's also worried about her father working himself to the bone to save them. Perhaps Yukitaka Oji-sama is the type to push himself, whether fighting for his daughter's friends or for his beloved town of Akihabara. There are certain things he can't back down from. So it seems Vera-san is worried that he'll push himself beyond his limits. But at the same time, maybe we can't save Mayuri and Hashida without Yukitaka Oji-sama doing that. I imagine this is quite the dilemma for her.
Thank you, Rumiho.
Said Yukitaka Oji-sama as he caressed Vera-san's face. Then as he reached for the phone to contact another negotiator, a piece of news appeared on the flat-screen TV.
And our next story. Early this morning, at the Kasai Rinkai Bar near the ocean.
A salaryman found a van floating in the ocean while he was fishing. The TV shows footage of Tokyo Bay. As the footage continues, a box-shaped van is pulled out of the water by a crane. The crane slowly moves the van over towards land and places it on a blue tarp. For some reason, this makes me incredibly uneasy. I don't like it. Are my nerves being hypersensitive? Unpleasant thoughts rush through the back of my mind. They're thoughts I don't want to think, but I can't help it.
The corpse of a teenage female was found inside the vehicle. Police are now rushing to identify the corpse.
The inorganic, emotionless voice of the newscaster resonates from the TV, and then some of the items left in the car were displayed on the screen. Vera-san stands up without a word. Her eyes open wide as she witnesses something unimaginable. A throbbing sound pulses loudly in my ear. No way. No way. On the screen were a recognizable hat and a green cell phone, both of which once belonged to someone we knew very well.
This can't be real.
Vera-san shakes her head like a child would. I don't want to accept this. I can't. This is something I should have been prepared for. After what Okabe told me, I should have predicted this. But neither of us were able to accept it. There was no way we could. Vera-san and I were both so stunned that we couldn't take our eyes off the screen. That's why we didn't realize. Mayuri? That he had woken up and had entered the living room.
Mayuri!
Okabe! I turned around to face the voice behind me. There was Okabe, whiter than a piece of paper.
Mayuri! 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 I failed again!
Holding his head in his hands, he drops to his knees as if to repent. Hearing him scream as if his spirit had been torn to 1,000 pieces, I understood for the first time humanity's ability to vocalize such grief. At the same time, his lament made me accept the undisputable reality of our friend's death. Okabe's scream was evidence that Mayuri really was dead. To this point, I'd been deluding myself into thinking that those items they found in the corpse were all fake. That way I'd be able to say that I couldn't accept Mayuri's death until I saw it with my own eyes. But I was just lying to myself, pathetically trying to obscure the truth, the opposite of what a scientist should do. That's right. I understood the moment I saw the hat and cell phone on the screen. That our precious ally, our friend, was gone from this world. That I would never see her again. But I couldn't accept that. Not like this. That's why I tried to say it was fake, to separate it from reality, to fool myself. That's nothing more than a shallow folly. The reality is before my eyes. The truth stands before me. I know that. I understand. I accept it. She's gone. Mayuri is gone.
Why? Why can't I save her?
At the same time, I can't allow myself to be lost in grief. Both because the scientist inside me still wants to maintain control of the situation at hand, and because if I am in the presence of someone in a much deeper state of grief. Okabe! Beating his head with his fists and crying, Okabe continues to wail. I grab his hands, hoping to get him to stop hitting himself, but he quickly breaks out of my grasp.
Why, Mayuri? I made the time machine. Finish me! Kill me instead! Why? Tell me, why does it have to be Mayuri?
He screams into the void, cursing the Rounders in CERN. His screams held such pain it felt as though they could tear apart the heart of whoever heard them. Though no matter how much pain his listeners felt, his pain was much worse. Stop, Okabe! If this keeps up, you're going to destroy yourself! I couldn't take it. I hated seeing the person I love reduced to this. Seeing the person I love in such pain. Is there something I can do for him? Anything? Can't I help alleviate his pain? Hopelessness and despair consume my heart. These are not my own feelings. They're Okabe's. His voice alone filled me with his agony and grief. I understand and I couldn't do anything for Okabe but embrace him. It was all we had left in us.
You forgive me?
Hiroki-san extends his hand. Suddenly, Okabe slumps to the ground unconscious, just as he did yesterday.
Knocking him out like this isn't optimal, but I fear leaving him this way would be worse.
We simply hold on to Okabe in silence, shaking our heads. Hiroki-san seems apologetic, but he provided Okabe with more peace than we could. We have no right to object. This is how useless we are. Our combined experiences, my genius status. None of that means anything right now. Just as Okabe laments being unable to save Mayuri, I am unable to save Okabe. I can't even start to ameliorate his pain. If only I had Okabe's reading Steiner ability, I could use the time leap machine to change places with him. But even that is nothing but a wish. Okabe. 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 I hold on to him, muttering his name over and over, as he'd done with Mayuri only moments before. I can sense Yukitaka Oji-sama and Kuroki-san's concerned eyes on me, but this is all I can bring myself to do. My cell phone rings and snaps me out of it. Papa?
Again?
Please! Papa, Okabe, he needs help! Okabe! Papa!
What? What are you?
Help me! Please, I can't... Okabe! I can't save the person I love! Feeling useless and awash with despair, I break down sobbing and crying the moment I hear Papa's voice. Not because of the trauma, trepidation, and fear I associate with him, because I heard the voice of the one who loved me and watched over me as a child. And Papa, taken aback by my tears, seemed like he couldn't even begin to get mad or scold me. Though it was only much later that I realized this.
And I think that is a pretty good place to cut it. I am so curious as to where this is going, because this definitely doesn't seem like just part of original Steins Gate. This seems like a sort of a branch off of the main story into the attractor field. I'm not sure, but I'm really excited to find out, and I hope you are too. So thank you all so much for following my playthrough of Steins Gate, Linear Bounded Phenogram, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye now!